Mom, please leave, now. My daughter's cold stare pierced through me. Honestly, it's annoying that I have to keep taking care of you forever. And it especially sucks when it's a parent who has a physical disability. I feel like I'm being sent to hell, but I can't say anything back to her because what she's saying is true. The accident has made it harder for me to move my body, and now I rely on a cane even just to walk. It's only natural for my daughter, who is now grown up, to find me a burden. I managed to push myself up to the table and bowed my head towards my daughter. I'm sorry, honey. You're right. I think I've been causing you a lot of trouble all this time. If you understand, then leave. Quickly. I'll call a taxi for you. So, be grateful for that. With that, my daughter Jenny threw a large bag outside the door. When I opened it, it was filled to the brim with my clothes and daily necessities. She must have been preparing for it quite some time. It hurt me to think that I had been causing her so much pain for a long time. Memories of the time I spent with my beloved daughter flooded my mind. My life raising and nurturing her had been so happy, so I didn't really want to be away from her. After a while, I wiped away my tears and began to prepare to leave the house. I'm Tamara. I had married my husband Steve when I was 20 years old. Among my friends, I was one of the first to get married. I always thought that if I were to get married, it would be to no one other than him. And Steve also said the same. After enjoying our newlywed life together for a year, we were blessed with a daughter, Jenny. When she was small, she was often got sick. She not only caught colds easily, but she also had a tendency to swell up more than other children when bitten by insects. As it was our first time raising a child, I felt completely lost. But now, she has grown up to be a fine adult. Every time I see her in a smart brand suit, I can't help but think how much she has grown up. After 2 decades of my married life, I noticed something strange. My husband started coming home later and going on business trips more frequently, which was unusual. At first, I thought it was because he had been promoted, but then I started to suspect him. However, I kept avoiding those suspicions. My husband and I had always gotten along well, and there was no way that he could betray me. I kept asking myself those questions and began to have sleepless nights since then. The reality soon caught up with me. One day, I was sleep deprived and slipped on the stairs at work. Fortunately, I wasn't seriously injured, but my left leg became quite disabled. I went through physical therapy after being hospitalized, but my recovery has been slow. I had no choice but to quit my part-time job, and now I'm doing some work that I can do at home. Since my opportunities to walk outside and talk to people have decreased, I became more contemplative than before. Today, I finished my work and was making dinner. I needed a large plate, but it was on a shelf that I couldn't reach without standing on tiptoe. I didn't feel like going through the trouble of getting a step stool. It was when I opened the cupboard and tried to reach for it by stretching that didn't happen. I'm home. Huh? Mom, what are you doing? I'm just getting the plate. No, it's okay. Let me get it for you. Jenny came running to me without even changing her clothes and grabbed the plate from the cupboard. Since my legs stopped working well, Jenny had started to come home at the same time every day to help me, even though she's in the prime of her working life. It's appreciated, but at the same time, I feel sorry. Watching Jenny eager to help, I felt a sense of sadness. And that night, I was in the bathroom when I heard a voice from the living room. Hey, Dad, can't you come home a little earlier?
Can't help it. It's work, you know. If you were that worried about Mom, why don't you hire a helper? I'll pay for it.
That's not the point. As I listened, I felt my spirits sink and let out a sigh. The incident happened on Saturday. The weather was bad and my legs hurt, so I didn't feel like moving at all. But I couldn't just sit still. So I was solving crossword puzzles in the living room to distract myself. My husband was working on his day off, and Jenny had been holed up in her room all morning. Around the time it was getting close to lunch, I heard Jenny's footsteps approaching. Jenny, should we have lunch now? Just as I was about to say that, I climbed up because Jenny had a concerned look on her face. Jenny? What's wrong? I'm sick of this. Jenny clenches her fist, and a voice looking at me. Just leave and go back home. You can go to your parents' place, right? Honestly, it's annoying that I have to keep taking care of you forever. Jenny's cold stare pierces me. I feel like I've been thrown into hell all of a sudden, but I can't say anything back. It's only natural for a daughter to feel annoyed with a mother who can't even walk without a cane. I managed to lean on the table and stand up, and I bowed my head to my daughter. I'm sorry, honey. You're right. I think I've been causing you a lot of trouble all this time. If you understand, then leave, quickly. I'll call a taxi for you. Be grateful for it, okay? With that, Jenny throws a big bag outside the door. It's filled with the brim with my clothes and daily necessities. She must have prepared it a long time ago. It was painful to think that I had been making that child suffer for such a long time. Wiping away my tears, I began to prepare to leave the house. I got into the taxi that Jenny had arranged for me and headed to my parents' house. Tears continued to overflow, no matter how much I wiped them away. I felt pathetic for causing trouble to my daughter and parents. When I arrived at my parents' house, they were waiting outside for me. It seemed that Jenny had already given the taxi fare. And so, life in my parents' house began. Fortunately, they were both physically and mentally healthy and didn't complain about taking care of me.
Tamara, you used to watch this, right?
Whoa, Dad, where did you find it? After dinner, my father played a music video I used to watch a lot. He said he had bought the DVD at a secondhand store. My mother also started buying new books by my favorite author for me. While I was grateful, I also felt sorry for causing trouble. Even if it can't help that I am a burden, I thought I should at least earn some money myself. Now that my living environment had settled down, I began to consider restarting my work-at-home job. On the morning of my second week back home, I woke up to a noise. When I looked outside the window, I saw a surprising sight. Jenny was throwing a garbage bag into our yard. I quickly opened the window and called out to her. Jenny, what are you doing? Jenny looked startled, but quickly ran away. I struggled to get up and make my way to the front door. By the time I got there, I was completely exhausted. But when I finally made it out of my room, I ran into my mother. Mom, didn't Jenny come here earlier? No, she didn't. But I saw her. She threw something into our yard. You must have been mistaken. Anyway, let's have breakfast. My mother pushed me from behind, and I couldn't say anything more. Although I thought about asking Jenny on the phone, I couldn't gather the courage to do so. No matter what I did that day, I was distracted. It seemed like it wasn't just my imagination that day, as I saw a garbage bag in the yard afterwards. However, by the time I noticed it and went to pick it up, it had already been cleaned up. I secretly decided to sleep in the living room in order to somehow check the contents of the bag. Another early morning, I heard a noise and woke up. I rushed towards the direction of the sound coming from the entrance. When I opened the door, Jenny was nowhere to be seen. However, the garbage bag was firmly placed there. When I opened it, there were many familiar things inside, such as my favorite books, DVDs, and family photo albums. I thought that maybe she came to throw them away, but then I suddenly remembered. Could it be that what my parents had given me were the things Jenny brought? But why would she do such a thing? As I tried to calm my restless mind and looked inside the bag, I found a photo of an unfamiliar woman entering a hotel with Steve. Tamara? My mother's voice came from behind, and I turned around. Seeing my state, she seemed to understand everything and suggested that we talk inside, taking a garbage bag with her. Well, actually, Jenny came to me for advice. She said that Steve seemed to be cheating on you. I was hit by a shock, not because of my husband's infidelity, but because my daughter knew about it. My mother began to speak with a solemn expression, telling me everything that had happened. Jenny happened to be present when Steve and his mistress were talking on the phone. My wife can't walk, and she can't do anything by herself. Is there any way to get rid of her? When Jenny heard that, she felt a sense of crisis and evacuated me to my parents' house. She deliberately used strong language to drive me out, thinking that if she told me the truth, I would be in even greater danger. Jenny hired a detective to continue investigating my husband's infidelity, and they planned to take it to court with the evidence they have gathered. After hearing all of this, I was completely stunned. I'm sorry for deceiving you, but Jenny made us to keep it a secret. I shook my head at my mother's words, feeling the kindness of my daughter and parents seep into my heart. Although Steve's betrayal was painful, their warmth was even more heartwarming. Mom, I have a favor to ask. Few days later, I went to my house with my parents. When I rang the doorbell, Jenny came out with faint dark circles under her eyes. She looked surprised, but let us in. Steve seemed to be out at the moment. My father explained the situation to Jenny. Yeah, that's right. I was planning to go pick you up, after everything with Dad's affair was resolved. Mom, I'm sorry for what I did. Jenny, don't. I'm sorry. It must have been really hard for you to carry this burden alone. Mom, I should be the one to face it. So don't worry, honey, okay? Upon hearing this, Jenny burst into tears. We hugged each other for the first time in years and cried until we felt better. That night, we ambushed Steve and made him kneel in front of us at the entrance. When we showed him the photo that Jenny had brought, he made a guilty expression. This is you, isn't it? What are you talking about? All of a sudden. That looks like someone else. Stop with the lame excuses. It's not an excuse. Look, I don't even have this jacket. When my father grabbed Steve's shoulder, he gasped in surprise. After taking a small breath, my father spoke in a low voice we had never heard before. If you keep spouting such nonsense, I'll tell you the truth. I'm sorry. Steve became tearful and began to confess everything. It turned out that he had been cheating for more than 2 years. The other woman was a young female employee who was almost the same age as Jenny. At first, he thought it was just a fling, but he missed the chance to end it.
I just wanted to impress her. I didn't mean it when I said I wanted you to disappear. Please, Tamara, believe me, I swear.
Of course, I was unable to forgive him and presented him with divorce papers and my conditions while he was in tears. Several months have passed since then.
Jenny, lunch is ready.
Okay, I'll serve.
So you sit down, Mom.
After Steve left, our house became more spacious. Surprisingly, Steve had been secretly hiding some assets, but he lost everything due to the large amount of compensations he had to pay. The rumor of his infidelity had already spread throughout the company, and his job was in danger. Dad called me again the other day. He's so persistent.
Oh, really? But anyway, about the money.
Do we have to talk about that again? I told you, I don't want it.
I know, but
I was planning to give the compensation money to both my daughter and parents, except for the amount I need to hire a caregiver. That way, I could free Jenny from my care, and our parents could live more comfortably. But both of them refused to take it.
Use it to create a life with Jenny and make memories for the future.
That's what my parents told me. Jenny also said,
No, I can't accept it.
It's your money, Mom. I tried to let her accept the money many times, but every time she refused. Then, let's go on a trip together. How about that, Mom?
A trip? Well,
yeah. We take pictures and updates all the bad things happen to us with fun memories. What do you say, Mom? Both my daughter and my parents had suggested a trip many times before. However, I always refused because I thought it would inconvenience everyone. I realize now that they asked me upon understanding everything. For their sake and for my own sake, I can take a step forward now.
Yeah, why not? Shall we go?
Jenny's face lit up when I replied,
Mom, really?
Yay! I have to plan it right away then.
Oh, I'm gonna call Grandma and Grandpa. Mom, where do you want to go?
As I age, I am sure that my physical problems will increase. Nevertheless, I want to do my best to live without giving up. I secretly made a vow to myself and smiled at my dear daughter, who was smiling in front of me.
Well then, Mona, it's goodbye for you here.
With a loud voice that could match the seabirds echoing in the harbor, my mother-in-law said, What do you mean? We are going on a luxury cruise with the 4 of us, right? As I said that, my mother-in-law twisted the corner of her mouth and continued with an even nastier expression.
Did you think that someone like you, who is worse than a housekeeper, could come with us on this cruise? How shameless of you! You're just a payment clerk. A useless daughter-in-law doesn't need entertainment, and you can't spend a vacation at the same level as us. You're so stupid for not even understanding that.
I didn't say anything to her terrible arguments. In everyday life, where I was always being bullied without anyone on my side, I had already given up hope. My mother-in-law laughed rudely and got on the ship in a vacation mood. Beside her, my father-in-law and husband didn't say anything. I stared at the 3 of them in silence, and as soon as the ship departed, I waved my hand and shouted loudly, "Goodbye!" I wish you good luck. Upon hearing that, my mother-in-law started shouting at me, but I just shrugged it off. You are about to embark the best trip I have set up for you. Well, it's the best for me anyway. Enjoy the revenge that I have planned for you, disguised as a surprise. The details will be revealed once you arrive. My name is Mona, a 38-year-old working housewife. I work as a clerk at a medium-sized enterprise. I have been married to Andrew for 7 years. Andrew and I were originally friends from our student days. We lost contact after graduating from university, but we started hanging out occasionally after we coincidentally met on the street. We started to develop feelings for each other and began dating about a year after we reunited. Andrew told me a secret shortly after we started dating. He revealed that he was infertile. He said with a gloomy expression, "If I'm with you, we won't be able to have children." However, I wasn't bothered by it. I never really wanted to have children myself. And I thought that if we didn't have children, we could still find our own happiness. So now, after 7 years of marriage without children, we are living a peaceful married life as a couple. At the same time, however, we are constantly troubled by our relationship with my parents-in-law. Our house is located right across my parents-in-law's house, and since Andrew also works for the company that his parents run, we often interact with them. I'm not complaining about that. The problem is that both of my parents-in-law treats me coldly. My mother-in-law has always spoiled Andrew, so she seems to dislike me and treats me like a nuisance. She also tries to push household chores onto me, which is a common story. Mona, I'm busy with work, so you could do the laundry and cleaning for me. Oh, you don't have to cook. I can't eat the food you make anyway. I'm sorry, but I also work full-time, so it's difficult for me to do it. What? How dare! Talking back to her mother-in-law. You are not fit to be my son's wife. Pack your bags and leave now. In addition, it's tricky because my father-in-law is also the type who sticks to old ideas. Until when are you planning to work, Mona? You're getting old, so have a child quickly. Seriously, what kind of education have you received so far? Even so, times have changed. You can have a happy home without children. That's not the issue. If you say things like that, I'll contact your company tomorrow and have you quit your job to have a child. My in-laws are stuck in old days, which makes it difficult. I try to respond politely, but they give me twice as much in return. So I just ignore them. Andrew acts like he doesn't know anything about their behavior. He is mild-mannered and doesn't like conflict, but that's not always a good thing. He thinks that if he supports me, he doesn't know what his parents will say. So, he pretends not to see it and sometimes even agree with his parents. I hate to say it, but most of the reason we don't have children is because of my husband's infertility. Andrew asked me not to tell his parents, so I didn't. Yet, I'm sad that he doesn't defend me when they criticize me. Despite all this, I still love Andrew. He's a good husband who makes dinner for me when I come home late and makes time for us to go out on weekends. We both love traveling and have visited many places in our 7 years of marriage. One day, my husband handed me a brochure. Mona, don't you want to travel in a luxury cruise ship? I have never been on one before, although I have been on a ferry. That sounds like a lot of fun. But we can't come up with that kind of money right away.
Well, let's plan to go in 2 years then. Let's save up and work together. Until the summer of 2 years from now.
Well, he's right. We should be able to save enough money in 2 years. Okay, let's do that in 2 years. From then on, my husband and I focused on saving money. We tried not to buy anything we didn't need and did everything we could to save money. And then, when it was 6 months until the trip, my mother-in-law suddenly visited our home as usual.
Hey, I heard that we are going on a luxury cruise ship, right? Have you already made reservations? If you don't hurry, you won't be able to make a reservation, will you? While I was surprised by my mother-in-law's sudden words, I asked her what I was wondering.
How do you know? We're going on a trip.
Then Andrew, who was sitting in front of me, scratching the back of his head, said, Oh, I told Mom. We are going to be away for more than 10 days, so it's natural, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but if they find out before we make a reservation, they might say they want to go. They want to come with us. And I wanted to keep it a secret from my in-laws. My inner voice was in vain, and my mother-in-law continued speaking.
Work is a little busy at the moment, but it's okay to have fun once in a while, right? I couldn't believe it, but my mother-in-law grinned and I asked, Are you planning on coming with us too? When I asked, my mother-in-law gave me a sharp look. What? Of course we're going. My husband will come too. It was an unbelievably audacious statement. I wanted to go on a trip with my husband alone, not with my in-laws. I stared at Andrew, desperate for him to refuse. I wonder how long it's been since we had a family trip. Helpless, I could only sigh as he casually began to speak. From then on, my in-laws frequently visited and made requests about the trip. I thought about asking Andrew, the one who came up with the idea, to make the reservations, but he avoided me by saying he was busy with work. About a month before the trip, a certain incident occurred. Andrew went out for a business dinner and didn't come back even after midnight. I became worried, and I took the car keys to go to the restaurant where the dinner was being held to pick him up. Just then, the front door opened forcefully. I'm home. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Andrew took off his jacket and went straight to the bedroom. I was worried and had stayed up until late at night, but he was acting as if nothing had happened. Feeling lonely, I picked up his jacket and something fell out of the pocket. I hurriedly picked it up, and it looked like a small gift box. A message card was stuck between the ribbon. Without thinking, I looked at the card, and there were unbelievable words written on it. Thank you always, Andrew. I love you. My blood ran cold. Various questions circled around in my head. Who was he meeting with just now? Who gave him this gift? What does this message mean? As I continued to think about it, I couldn't sleep and spent the night in the living room. The next day, my husband woke up carelessly with a big yawn. I presented the gift box and message card to him. What is this? Where were you yesterday? It wasn't a business meeting, was it? Andrew immediately opened his eyes and looked surprised. No, it's not that. It's just that, as thanks for helping her with work. I see. That's quite a passionate thank you, saying I love you. When I said this, Andrew started stammering and repeating words. No, that's not it. It's just that.
Feeling fed up with the situation, I decided to leave my husband and go to work for the time being. I still felt uneasy, but I managed to finish my work. At lunchtime, when I turned on my smartphone, I saw that there were a lot of missed calls from my in-laws. Just as I was feeling annoyed, my mother-in-law called me again, so I had no choice but to answer.
Hey, Mona. I heard that you suspect Andrew of cheating on you. Our child would never do such a thing, you know? Even if he did cheat on you. That's just a man's instinct. Excuse me? After my mother-in-law spoke in a forceful manner, my father-in-law immediately took over the phone. That's right. If anything, it's your fault for doing something to make him cheat on you in the first place. Andrea only cheats because you don't have children and are always working. When you get home, make sure you apologize to my son. Got it?
My father-in-law said whatever he wanted, and then immediately hung up the phone. I had finally had enough. My in-laws, who were turning me into the bad guy, and my husband, who didn't protect me, and even sided with them all these years. I finally decided to execute the plan I had been thinking about for a while. And finally, the day of departure of the luxurious cruise came. My in-laws and Andrew got in the car with smiles on their faces. I was going to drive to the port and board the ship from there. I secretly felt excited. It's going to be a great trip. While holding back my urge to laugh, I drew up the car towards the port. The port was surprisingly quiet and empty. I unloaded everyone's luggage and headed towards the pier. I smell the sea. Andrew is acting carefree and childish. Then, at the moment, my mother-in-law approached me with a big smile on her face. Thank you for making the reservation, Mona. Let's meet again in 2 weeks. Please pick us up. What do you mean? We are going on a family trip with 4 of us, right? My mother-in-law twisted her mouth and made a malicious face and continued. Oh, a daughter-in-law is just a stranger to us. Don't you get it? As long as you pay the money, we're good. I didn't say anything. My father-in-law and husband were happily flipping through travel magazines. Andrew noticed my gaze, shrugged his shoulders, and said shamelessly, It seems to be like that. By the way, I can't see a luxury cruise ship anywhere. Where is it? My mother-in-law looked around suspiciously. There don't seem to be any other passengers either. Did you get the correct location, Mona? Don't worry. Please enjoy yourselves from here on. I led the 3 of them onto the boat. Is this really the right ship? My father-in-law muttered, looking at the boat in front of him. It was a small boat that seemed to be full with just 10 people. So I explained to them. You will transfer from this boat to the luxury cruise ship. It's a security major, they said. So, don't worry. Now, get on board. Hurry. I forced the 3 of them onto the small boat with their luggage. Well then, please take care. I called out to the boatmen, and they departed. Goodbye. I wish you good luck. I waved goodbye with a big smile to the 3 of them. I thought I heard my mother-in-law shouting something, but I ignored it. After confirming that the 3 disappeared beyond the horizon, I picked up my belongings and headed back to the car. I hope this will be a fun trip. Later, I returned home and immediately gathered my clothes, appliances, and furniture that I had bought before getting married in one place. When I finished this task, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. You
How dare you deceive us? There is no such thing as a luxury cruise ship. Where the hell are we? My mother-in-law was so flustered that I couldn't help but laugh. After laughing for a while, I decided to answer her question. There was never a luxurious cruise ship to begin with. My mother-in-law was shouting something, but I continued. I expected you to leave me behind, so I didn't make a reservation.
Do you think you can get away with this kind of thing? Where are we? I can call the police, you know.
Now my father-in-law's voice could be heard. The police? That's a bit extreme, isn't it? It's your wife's hometown, isn't it? I just brought you to her hometown. Did you get to see Aunt Mel? Once again, my mother-in-law shouted.
What did you say?
Aunt Mel, your older sister Mel. I talked to her, and she said to bring you guys there. She'll probably do you guys super well, you know. My mother-in-law's big sister Mel was like a mother figure to my mother-in-law and had a strong policy for dishonesty. Although we had only met a few times during family events, we got along well from the start. So I decided to confide in her and tell her everything I had been through with my in-laws and husband. As I had anticipated, Aunt Mel was furious but offered to help me. Soon, Aunt Mel's gonna come pick you guys up. Have fun! I said that and ended the call. Soon after, I moved to a new apartment closer to my workplace, which made my commute much easier. While moving, I gathered evidence of my husband's infidelity, which was easy to do since he was careless and left plenty of evidence. By the time the move was over, I had enough evidence to support my divorce case, and with the help of a lawyer, we were able to successfully divorce. Of course, I also requested compensation for emotional damage caused by the affair. The lawyer who went to meet my ex-husband Andrew said that he looked devastated and worn out. Aunt Mel was a well-known sports instructor in the local community, and it seemed that she had been working my in-laws and Andrew to the bone from morning till night. They were now living a life that was as demanding as the life they had forced me to live. Aunt Mel said that if they genuinely repented, they could be released from their duties. However, my in-laws' family business had practically gone bankrupt, and they had nowhere to go. It was no longer my concern, though. I just hoped that I would never have to see them again. On the other hand, I recently met a kind and understanding man who accepted me, including my divorce and everything that led up to it. Once his work is less busy, we plan to get married. Although my path to happiness may have been long and winding, I look toward to living a happy life with someone who always puts me first.